That 49ers win is aging like fine wine, and here to tell you all about it, I'm Nate, your host from Sports Talk San Francisco. Hit subscribe if you're looking for 49ers content, but man, I can't wait to break down all of the things that are just flooding the internet today about how great the performance yesterday was. New updates. I'm still waiting for Kyle Shanahan to speak. I haven't seen any of it yet. I've been refreshing my feeds as much as I can. That he was supposed to speak. It should be by right now, actually, as I'm recording. So maybe we'll get some updates before the end of the video. So stick to the end for that. But all of that to say, let me know in the comments which phase of the game impressed you most yesterday. Was it the offense going up against the number 3 ranked defense and their performance? Specifically, you could go off of Brock Purdy and the performance he had going up against a really, really tough defensive line and what he did in scramble and all that stuff. That's a big narrative coming out of the game. You could say the defense playing a third great game in a row. I'm going to count that Arizona Cardinals game as a great game, considering up until garbage time, they had held the Arizona Cardinals to 15 points. Last week, they hold to 9 points. Then yesterday, they hold to 8 points. So I'm going to say that would be a big take for me. And then the third option would be special teams, putting in their best performance of the season. Let me know which phase of the game impressed you most yesterday and today, of course, as you're processing all of that information. Let me know what you think in the comments on that one. But let's jump into some of these updates that are just absolutely making this win look bigger and bigger and bigger every single time I look at it. So to kind of build a little bit of the narrative for you, to help you understand why this is such a big win. The Rams lose yesterday. The Seahawks win, but it's the Seahawks win. I'm not going to make a big deal out of the Seahawks winning yesterday. They went up against probably one of the worst quarterback performances, definitely one of the worst quarterback performances of the season yesterday with the Minnesota Vikings. So I'm not going to really call that whatever. The NFC right now is led by Chicago Bears, who the 49ers have a chance to beat. And the Niners are in a pretty good spot, 8-2 in the division, if I'm not mistaken. So you're looking at a situation here where the Rams are 9-3, the Seahawks are 9-3, the Bears are 9-3, and you're only a game behind these teams. If all of them were to lose this upcoming weekend, then you would technically be on par with them in terms of win-loss record. But I don't see that happening. The Rams are playing the Cardinals. I expect the Rams to win that game and get back to their winning ways. So I don't think that's going to happen. But whatever the case, let's start off with the fact that this team played complementary football, which is why we're having this particular discussion today about which phase impressed you most, okay? The 49ers registered their most balanced complementary football of the season in Cleveland, says 49ers SF Chronicle David Lombardi. Expected points added by phase: offense 4.8, defense 9.3, and special teams 4.5 to build that out. So there's no wrong answer on this one, honestly. When I'm thinking about the offense, right? What Brock Purdy did yesterday with his legs was unbelievable and really set this team apart. Willing to throw away the ball 7 times. I charted like 6, I think, but threw away the ball 7 times. And I really, I made a big deal about that yesterday in the post game. A lot of you guys talked about similar things in the comments of yesterday's game. Unbelievable what Brock Purdy did with his feet and his willingness to not chase and play hero ball, as I like to call it. We'll get to more on hero ball in a second. Highest graded 49ers on offense against the Browns were George Kittle, Brock Purdy, Juwan Jennings, and Kyle Juszczyk. That checks out for the most part. Nobody in the 80s or 90s. So, you'll take that with a little bit of a grain of salt, but I thought everyone played well. George Kittle making a couple really big catches. One of them through incredible contact, an incredible catch through contact on the sideline there. 49ers offensive line pressures allowed versus the Browns. Trent Williams allowed 4 pressures and 1 sack. Spencer Burford, 4 pressures. McKivitz, 3 pressures. Brendel, 2 pressures. Dominic Pooney, 2 pressures. Ben Parch didn't, but he only had 6 pass blocking snaps. If it wasn't for Brock Purdy's scrambling ability, says Coach Yak, the Browns would have had at least 3 to 4 sacks. I agree. Could not agree more. David Lombardi adds to that. Myles Garrett had 8 pressures. Cleveland's 58% pressure rate was their best in 3 years per ESPN. Yet Brock Purdy only took 1 sack. And there's no point This is not about comparing what Brock Purdy did versus what Mac Jones would have done. This is not a QB controversy or anything like that, but this is something that Brock Purdy gives you that other quarterbacks in the league do not have. And I do mean that when I say that. Brock Purdy turning a 58% Cleveland pressure rate into just 1 sack is a form of hero ball, a good form of hero ball that definitely isn't within the system kind of ball. A couple of thoughts on that. Firstly, when we talk about hero ball, this is a totally fair point. Hero ball is a subjective term. David Lombardi is kind of using it in a different way than I use it. And so I agree with David Lombardi per his point. What I will say, when I say hero ball, what I'm talking about is him chucking the ball down the field, trying to force plays that aren't there or are not easily there, right? Brock Purdy did have a couple of opportunities for checkdowns when he threw the ball away. I was watching for it. I was looking for, hey, there's a check down to Christian McCaffrey. There's a whatever, right? Many of those would not have been huge gains. They would have been marginal gains, if anything. Some of them may be TFLs. But Brock Purdy willing to throw the ball away and say our offense is good enough and our defense is good enough for us to let this one go in favor of our next op. I love that. I love that about Brock Purdy. So, yes, what he did with his feet was a form of hero ball in the sense that he was keeping plays alive. He was getting this offensive line who gave up a lot of pressures, and I'm not going to grade them badly for giving up pressures against one of the best defensive lines in the league, arguably the best defensive line threat in terms of sack threat for sure in the league. I'm not going to give the offensive line any hate after their performance. I thought they're coming off of 2 really good games offensively in pass pro, and I'm not gonna be harsh on them whatsoever for that particular game. Best pressure to sack ratio with a minimum of 70 dropbacks under pressure this season is Brock Purdy by a large margin at 5.8%. So what does that mean? That means that essentially he's getting sacked for every 20 pressured dropbacks. Not 20 dropbacks, 20 pressured dropbacks. That's an unbelievable statistic. Yes, he's only played a handful of games, so I get it. You know, it's hard to compare him to guys like Dak Prescott, Bo Nix, Sam Darnold, who've been out there basically every single week this season. If I'm not mistaken, I think they've all been out there every single week. Quick pause in the video for a message from this video's sponsor, which I'm stinking proud to tell you is Chomps. A while back, my wife bought me some Chomps. I'd never had it before and absolutely loved them. I got hooked on them immediately. 0 grams of sugar, 10 grams of protein, 100 calories, grass-fed beef. They come in a variety of flavors. The turkey's really good, too. I met someone yesterday who absolutely swears by the jalapeno. So there's something out there for everybody. Go give it a try. They're perfect on-the-go snacks for me. It's my favorite thing to bring to work. Sometimes I just eat them with my lunch. Sometimes I have them as a snack, and I absolutely love them. And as I've told you before, it's crazy to me because I did not like beef sticks growing up, and these things made me believers. If you click the link in my description and use my promo code, my friends over at Chomps are happy to knock off 15% off your entire order. You can throw them in your gym bag. You can throw them in your car. You can throw them in your backpack like I do, or you can just leave them in your desk at work. They're fantastic. I strongly encourage you to give them a try. I can't think of a game where they weren't. But either way, I mean, you know, you're going up against larger data samples, but this is something that you got to give Brock Purdy some massive, massive credit for. No asterisk needed for me on that one. Then you've got on the defensive side of the ball, you've got players making names for themselves on defense. Clelin Ferrell, who was not wearing 94, by the way. That's an old picture. I haven't found a new one yet under 9. I think he's 96 now, but whatever. You get the main point. Keon White, let's talk about him, a guy who's making a name for himself right now with the 49ers, generated his second highest pressure rate at 28.6% of his career. This is the second best game he's ever had. His first season with the Patriots was very good, so that's saying something. Highest graded 49ers on defense against the Browns per PFF, D. Winters at nearly an 80, Malik Mustafa, Jalen Graham, Deommodore Lenoir, and Clelin Ferrell. all having great games for the 49ers. The 49ers generating 11 pressures and 3 sacks as a team against the Browns. Keon White with 4 pressures and one of them being a sack. Cleveland Ferrell with 4 pressures, 2 of them being sacks. Bryce Huff, Jordan Elliott, and Robert Beal each getting their own pressure themselves. So the 49ers defense finding ways to pressure not a very good offense. I'll give credit to that. I'm not trying to say that this is unbelievable. This performance is the best thing ever. But you're doing it with guys who are either no names or cast-offs, like Keon White's kind of a cast-off. Bryce Huff was a cast-off. I mean, and Cleveland Ferrell wasn't even on a football team a month ago, and now look what he's doing for the San Francisco 49ers, and this time already putting himself in position to be better than he was early on. Cleveland Ferrell, of course, getting drafted really highly and then not really panning out for a long time. Cleveland Ferrell, since joining the 49ers, after now 4 games being played, he's had 4 sacks, 11 pressures, 15 total tackles, 4 tackles for loss, and 5 stops. During his 7-year career, he's never had more than 4.5 sacks in a season. He's already at 4 through a handful of games there. I feel like we've had him for 5 games. Maybe he's only been out there for 4 of them. Is that right? I don't know, something like that. Deommodore Lenoir in coverage against the Browns. 32 coverage snaps, 2 targets, only 7 yards allowed, 0 touchdowns allowed, a 76.0 coverage grade, and 58.3 passer rating when targeted. Much more where that came from. You've got Upton Stout out there with 4 targets and 31 yards allowed, a 76 passer rating when targeted. Renardo Green not having the greatest game, 2 targets for 45 yards allowed, 158.3 passer rating when targeted, nearly perfect there, and then 1 touchdown allowed. Deommodore Lenoir, I already mentioned that one, so we'll skip on to the next. The 49ers defense the past 2 games has 17 points total allowed. 17 points through 2 games. That's wild. Like, that would be a decent game in 1 game. If you're like, the defense gave up 17 points. Maybe not against this offense, but whatever. Against the Panthers, who beat the Rams, and who did they beat the week before? Anyway, they've had some big performances. 4 sacks and 3 turnovers is your San Francisco 49ers defense the past 2 games. They also had 2 turnovers the game before that as well, by the way. Let's see here. Special teams. We didn't talk about Sky Moore yesterday. I can't believe it. Someone said it in the comments. You were right. Sky Moore, he's looking like an absolute steal right now, doing a pick swap from 6th to 7th round with the Chiefs. For Sky Moore, a guy who was another player who was just let go because they were gonna cut him anyways, and the Niners are willing to make a draft swap in order to ensure he comes to us. That has now looked like a very good deal. Early on in the season, it was questionable at times, but right now that looks like a very, very good deal. His 66-yard return being one of the best we've seen in years. Fantastic on that front. Let's see here. I didn't update this. So the Seahawks moved to 9-3, and the Cardinals moved to 3-9. So I did not update that, unfortunately. The 49ers have right now, though, the 49ers have this bye week right now, which hits at a great time for Brock Purdy to come back, play a few games, get in rhythm, start to figure some things out, have a little bit of a rough patch here and there. But really, overall, if you take that 1 quarter basically of bad football, a little bit more than a quarter, Brock Purdy's looked really good. Great to see him so mobile, and then he gets some time to rest, to recuperate, and then he comes back hopefully healthier. You could get Yetur Gross-Matos back, which would be huge. He was going to be a big part of this NASCAR package that the 49ers were putting together at the beginning of the season. Defensive front that I thought was going to age very well. Who was Leroy out there in the comments talking about this all season long? This defense, this very, very young defense, is going to continue to get better under Robert Saleh. Great coach and young players, great talents that couldn't be realized. And they're being realized right now before our very eyes, which I think is fantastic. Let me know what you guys think, as always, in the comments below. Which phase impressed you most? Of course, you can be impressed by more than one phase. I'm impressed by all 3 of them, which is why I want this out there for you guys. I have my own feelings. I suppose for me, I'm most impressed with this defense, not because they managed to stop a bad Cleveland Browns offense, but because of how they're doing it with who they're doing it with. That is something that I think is just absolutely incredible. You got YGM out all season, basically. You have obviously Nick Bosa. You have Michael Williams go down. He's out for the season. Fred Warner out for the season. There's a lot this defense has had to go without. Bryce Huff has missed games. So for this defense to be doing what they're doing right now with Alfred Collins and CJ West out there, rookies getting snaps, you got to take your hat off to this team and what they're able to accomplish. And the defensive line that got home more against a defensive line that's one of the best in the league. That is at getting home. That is pretty incredible. You got to give them a massive, massive amount of credit for that. And of course, special teams having their best performance of the season, balling out unbelievably. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. As always, appreciate you guys and hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your Monday night football tonight. Let's watch it.